Hi, I'm John Sove, and this is Art and Design. Today, our guest is Fisher Stolz. Fisher, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome, John. It's great to see you.
Now, Fisher, you're in your studio, and my question to you is, how did you get started in sculpture?
Oh, well, I went to the University of Georgia. I was originally biology pre-vet, but I'd taken a bunch of courses in high school, architecture and basic technical drawing, things like that. And I decided that I really wanted to go into art. Got a degree in graphic design, BFA there. But before my portfolio last semester, I had a semester to play around with, and had a chance to study abroad in Cortona, Italy. That's where I took my first sculpture courses and some art history while I was over there as well.
And so that led you to where?
Well, spending the time, it was a semester in the summer, gave me a different perspective on what I really wanted to do with my life. So I finished my degree and started working in Atlanta for an architectural signage company. Also continued to make some sculpture on the side. And then after a year and a half, I decided to go freelance and move into a studio with one of my former roommates from the Cortona program in Marietta, just outside of Atlanta. Shared it with a third individual too, and made sculpture there for another year and a half while doing the graphic design freelance work, and felt like I really needed to make a decision between the two to do one of them well, and decided to go back to graduate school. And that was 1990.
And that was Notre Dame. Is that correct?
No, that was also the University of Georgia
Okay.
in Athens.
And why did you choose that for the MFA program?
Well, I really had not spent much of my undergraduate work with those professors. In fact, they made me take a few classes, several classes, before they were willing to admit me into the graduate program. But at the University of Georgia, we had four full-time professors in sculpture. They had one of the best stone carving programs in the nation, and that was one of the things that I began to become interested in right away. They also had a really good foundry program, fabrication areas and things like that. And so it was, to me, the best place to pursue the types of things that I wanted to do.
So Italy wrecked you, is what it came down to, right? You
Right.
spent all that time
Completely,
in the
epiphany changed
quarries.
my life.
Okay, so now you're armed with an MFA in sculpture. What do you do from there?
I started looking at jobs through the College Art Association. At the time, I believe there were about 20 or so full tenure track jobs available. Went through some interviews, kind of got close, but I did not get a position my first year. So I got a studio in Athens, and I also was working 20 hours a week in Elberton, Georgia, about 45 minutes from Athens, doing stone carving in a monument company. And the Olympics, the '96 Olympics were coming, and so they were looking for people to participate in the Cultural Olympiad. And so I had a number of applications out for potential, major work at that point that were in progress, but I was also going through the second round of the College Art Association openings for tenure track jobs. And Bradley interviewed me, brought me to campus, and eventually hired me.
Where you're still at Bradley, right? As the head of the department?
Right. Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois.
All right. Gotta get that straight in there. Now, did you miss the music scene in Athens when you moved up to Peoria?
Oh my gosh, the music scene was fantastic when I was there. The B-52s, REM, Widespread Panic actually was practicing right across the railroad tracks from the sculpture Stoneyard pad, so I could hear them playing. Yeah, that was fantastic. Peoria has a lot of good things about it as well. It's not Athens, Georgia, but it's a beautiful river city, and I've seen some great music here as well.
Well, and to end my thing on Athens, did you ever see Love Tractor while you were there?
You were breaking up just a bit, John. I didn't hear the
Oh,
full question.
oh, sorry. I was checking to see if you ever had the chance to see Love Tractor while they were playing there.
I don't think I saw Love Tractor while I was there. But
Just a
one of the
question.
bands that I did see was Jason and the Scorchers. If you remember Jason and the Scorchers, um, Jason, it turns out, is from Central Illinois, and I got to see him, hear him play, and meet him here in Peoria.
That's a beautiful thing. Another reason to come to Bradley.
Right.
So this is close to 25 years you've been at Bradley, right?
It's almost 30.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it that keeps you at Bradley and in Peoria?
Um, I think your question was, what is it about Bradley and Peoria that has kept me here? Well, I was impressed by the studio itself. We do have an excellent foundry. We have a bridge crane that runs the length of our space. We have a graduate program here, which I thought was important. We're only about, well, depending on traffic, 3 hours or so from Chicago. We're about 3 hours from St. Louis, but Chicago is one of the places that being close to that city with its architecture and its history of art and sculpture has been fantastic to be close enough to get in there and take advantage of all the things that they have to offer, and yet still not have to fight the traffic of a city that size.
Well, that leads me to a question I've been meaning to ask you for a long time. In 2012, you headed up the Chicago International Sculpture Exhibit. I mean, you were the curator of that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Bob Emser founded Chicago Sculpture International, an organization of sculptors back in the 1990s, I believe, and I had exhibited on the Pier Walk exhibitions. Terry Karpowitz, Michael Dunbar started Pier Walk, and the opportunity to show work, major large scale work, along with so many other great sculptors, was something that I thought, we should continue doing this as much as we can. Pier Walk kind of went through a heyday and then began to fade away once the initial players moved on to other things. But I was a member of Chicago Sculpture International, and after giving some opportunities to them, they asked me to be on the board. And one of the things that I did was I went to an iron pour, I believe it was, at the University of Kentucky, and I met the people from the Mid-South sculpture organization. We talked about doing exchange shows, and Mid-South started out by inviting people from Chicago Sculpture International to exhibit along the riverfront in Chattanooga. Great exhibition there. So it was our turn then to invite them to do something with us. I began to talk with the Chicago Park District, and through Chicago Sculpture International, we were able to have our art in the parks, primarily Lincoln Park and Grant Park, but a number of parks in the area, and run about 60 sculptures over the course of 5 or 6 miles right along Lake Michigan, and invite Chicago Sculpture International. We also invited the Texas Sculpture Group. All 3 of those at the time were affiliates of the International Sculpture Center. And the International Sculpture Center knew that we were planning this, and we were able to coordinate with them to have their annual conference in Chicago that year. So there was a lot of good momentum going for that show.
Well, Fisher, organizing 60 sculptures throughout the city of Chicago is no small task. And I've been wanting to ask you this question forever. I'm glad we were able to do it on the show. But what were some of the outcomes, and what were some of the things that you encountered while putting that show together?
Well, I got to meet a lot of wonderful people. Coordinating the installations was a bit of a daunting task, but we were able to break it down into groups, and working with the installers. That was kind of a learning experience, but it was something that we were able to pull off in bites. And so over the course of about 5 or 6 weeks, we would set 7 or 8 sculptures a day, and just try to coordinate with all of the artists to schedule things that would fit our schedule and theirs. I did meet.
And there were.
I'm sorry. I did want to mention one thing. I met a guy named David Scott from Scotland who showed his maquettes, as he called them, that were like 12, 14 feet tall, called the Kelpies. Those sculptures were actually realized later in Scotland at about 100 feet each. And it was really enjoyable to work with some people like that, international artists that had major plans for their work in life.
Those were the 2 horse heads, right?
Right, the Kelpies.
They were incredible, and I did get the opportunity to see them installed when they were in Scotland, but they had a big presence in Chicago as well. And is there anything else that really hit you and was a great takeaway from being the guy who was coordinating this whole thing?
Well, we had a few lectures that went along with the exhibition. One of them was at the Hyde Park Art Center, and one of the people that attended that was Tim Bartlett from the Urbana Park District. Tim was interested in adding more work to the Wandell Sculpture Garden in Urbana, and I know he took a number of pieces from people in the show, and eventually he began to bring some of my work over to Wandell as as well. So that was a really fantastic experience to meet with Tim and get to know how he put together a sculpture garden, which is something now that we are doing here in Peoria with the Peoria Park District. We have the Donovan Sculpture Garden that's only a couple of years old. But Tim's Wandell Sculpture Garden just celebrated their 25th anniversary, and they have about 40 pieces or so in the Urbana Park District area. About 33 of them, I think, are in the Wandell Sculpture Garden.
So really, this project, and we're talking about 2012 here, opened up new opportunities, but you had to be open yourself to those opportunities, like you are.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Now, so moving back to Bradley, you're celebrating your 30th year coming up here at Bradley University. What can people expect from the program?
We feel like I hate to brag, but I think that we may have the best bronze foundry program in the nation. I will say it that way. We have a number of undergrads that have created life-size bronze pieces that have been exhibited in Sculpture Walk Peoria, Donovan Sculpture Garden. One of them was purchased by the Peoria Riverfront Museum. So our foundry program, I feel like, is one of our huge assets. We still do. I have some people carve stone. I don't think that there are many places that you can have the opportunity to do that. A lot of my work for Chicago and other public art locations is fabricated stainless steel, and so we do a lot of fabrication here as well. And all of those things to me are, kind of from the trunk of the tree of sculpture, the root of things. As far as a little bit more cutting edge things, I started teaching a 3D modeling, and back then it was called rapid prototyping program back in 1998. And we've been teaching that course once a year ever since. So we have currently we're using Fusion 360, an open source kind of program that is free for students, and we have a couple of 3D printers. Just printed off some student work over the weekend. And we're starting to investigate digital scanning a bit more too. So, I think that there's a lot for students, potential students to be interested here at Bradley. And thanks for asking.
Well, on that note too, there's a lot of challenges when it comes to the art department now, because kids, to generalize, you're very hands-on. This is a great opportunity, and when a lot of departments are going in a different direction, you still have these foundations and the equipment and the ability to do a life-size bronze as a student. I think it's incredible, and I commend you on that, because I very rarely even see a bronze department anymore. So how does that fare from your assessment about what's going on at other art departments across the country?
Well, I do know that there are fewer programs that are offering the opportunity to cast bronze in foundries. There's still a number of them out there, and there's also, I guess, a second wave of artists that are working in iron, and we've done a little bit of ironwork, built a cupola, and been to the Stolz furnaces for the International Cast Iron Art Conferences. Um, so I know that there's still a number of schools out there that like the hands-on type of work, uh, the more conceptual work. You know, if that's what you're interested in, there are plenty of schools that will lead you down that direction.
Well, and I'm excited about it because the hands-on work, especially when you take on a bronze to design it, to plan it, to execute it, to pour the bronze, that experience that you're offering students um, uh, is is something that they can take and put into any other aspect of their life. And whether they continue in the arts or go into manufacturing or go into um, really anything, that's a transferable skill. And so often you don't, in art departments, you don't get this experience to work that large that early on. And I commend you on having a great program like that where these students have that ability, that option to take advantage of it. Where do you see your students going after they finish undergrad? Just as
Well,
a generalization, where have they ended up?
that's a yeah. Well, we do have a few students who actually concentrate in sculpture. Um, for many students, this is an opportunity to try something while they're going for their BA, BS, or BFA degree, where you know they get to take a course or two. Um, Several of them will also concentrate in two areas. Many of them, it seems like it's graphic design and sculpture, and actually that's kind of the way that I started as a graphic designer before fully embracing sculpture. Um, so some of these things will take a number of years, but one of my most recent graduates is now working in an art foundry in Cincinnati. One of my former students actually worked in an art foundry in Atlanta, and then in Central Illinois before opening up his own art foundry. Um, Once you have all of those skills available, then you know um, you can do a lot with them. We send students to other graduate programs with the opportunity to become uh, professors themselves. We also have a K through 12 program, um, so where students actually get their education degree along with their art um, degree. So I feel like they're more prepared than students that go through K through 12 education and only take a smattering of art courses. Ours actually have 2 degrees when they finish up, and those are the ones that begin to feed our university and others.
Well, Fisher, well, I mean, we talk about Bradley and your position as head of the art department there, but the other thing that I commend you on is you're a full-time artist. You're creating, you're producing work every year, where a lot of times that's not the case. People get so swallowed up with the educational side of things that they're not creating anymore, and it's easy to see how people can fall into that category, but not you. And I've always been impressed because your work is everywhere, and you work very hard at this. What do you have coming up with your personal sculpture?
Well, thank you, John. By the way, I'm the head of the sculpture area, but I'm not the chair of the art department. Um, and
I run fast
and
and loose with these
this is one of
interviews.
the all right. I do feel like all of the faculty here at Bradley are really strong working artists in their own disciplines. So I certainly want to be a part of that. we all feel that we're better teachers if we're actually out there doing the work ourselves. And some of the work that I do, they will see me go through all of the process because a number of these pieces I will work on in the Bradley studio outside of class. My current project is a life-size bronze of Major Robert Henry Lawrence Jr., who graduated from Bradley in the 50s. He is known as the first black astronaut. He was he joined the Air Force. He ended up getting his master's and doctorate from Ohio State University and was selected for the manned orbital laboratory missions and was a jet fighter pilot who was doing training exercises in Edwards Air Force Base, actually training one of his superiors when they had an accident that ended up killing Major Lawrence. And so that's the sad side of things. But his legacy is something that we want to let more people know about here at Bradley. And so right now I'm working on the clay for the Major Lawrence statue.
When is that slated to be revealed?
Founders Day of 2024, just about a year from now. If you look in the background, you can actually see a black and white photograph over, let's see, right in that area of a model that stood in for Major Lawrence while I took photographs. I also took some digital scans of that model and had the scan carved out of foam at the Digital Atelier in Hamilton, New Jersey, with an offset so that I would have an opportunity to apply clay throughout the whole surface and still have the artist's hand in it, not just a super tight scan.
Well, Fisher, I appreciate you sharing not only your experience with CSI, with Bradley, and your own personal work. And thanks for coming on the Art and Design Show today. And I'm looking forward to seeing the studio in the future.